It's 7:15 in the morning, and Daniel is already dressed for work.
He's been awake since 4. Not because of an early shift, because he hasn't slept properly in 6 weeks. He sits at the kitchen table with his coffee going cold, staring at nothing. His wife asks if he's okay.
He says yes. She asks again. He says he's just tired. He is not just tired. Daniel is 34.
He coaches his son's football team on Saturdays. He calls his mother every Sunday. He has never missed a bill payment in his adult life. By every visible measure,
he is holding it together.
But inside the architecture of his mind, something has been quietly collapsing for months.
3 weeks later, Daniel took his own life.
His family will spend the rest of their lives asking what they missed. The answer, in most cases, is not that the signs were invisible. It is that we have built a world that teaches men to make those signs invisible, even to themselves. Men account for approximately 70% of all self-inflicted casualties worldwide. Every single minute, somewhere on this planet, a man takes his own life. 1,400 per day, 42,000 per month, over 500,000 per year. This is medical world, and today we are going into the science, the psychology, the neurology, and the truth behind the most under-discussed health crisis of our generation.
Men's mental health.
From early childhood, boys receive a consistent and unambiguous message. Do not cry. Do not show fear. Do not need help. Be strong. Man up. These are not neutral phrases. They are instructions for emotional suppression delivered so repeatedly and from so many directions that they become internalized as identity. Not just, I should not cry, but a man does not cry. The self and the rule become one. Psychologists call this normative male alexithymia, a term coined by researcher Ronald Levant, to describe the culturally induced difficulty many men have in identifying, processing, and expressing their own emotional states. It is not that men do not feel. It is that they have been trained, from the earliest possible age, not to notice that they do. And here is where it gets neurologically significant. The human brain is not a static organ. It is plastic, meaning it changes its structure and function in response to repeated experience. When a boy repeatedly suppresses emotional responses, the neural pathways associated with emotional processing begin to function differently. The connections between the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex become less integrated over time. The limbic system is the emotional engine of the brain. It includes the amygdala, which detects threat and generates fear and anger, and the hippocampus, which consolidates emotional memories. The prefrontal cortex is the brain's executive center. It modulates emotional responses, weighs consequences, regulates impulse, and generates language for internal experience. In healthy emotional processing, the limbic system and prefrontal cortex are in active dialogue. But in chronic emotional suppression, that dialogue is repeatedly interrupted. The limbic system fires, the emotion is real, but the signal is blocked before it reaches conscious awareness and language. What does this produce? A man who feels everything, but cannot access what he feels, whose distress surfaces not as sadness, but as irritability, aggression, risk-taking, substance use, or a total emotional flatness that looks like composure. Now here is where the science becomes genuinely fascinating. The male brain has greater within-hemisphere connectivity. The left and right sides of each hemisphere communicate more intensely with themselves. This means men process emotional stimuli more in the right hemisphere, which handles spatial reasoning and global perception, and less in the left hemisphere, which handles language. This is one reason men more often experience emotions as physical sensations, tension in the chest, a clenched jaw, pressure behind the eyes, rather than thoughts that can be easily verbalized. This is not a deficiency. It is a different architecture. Men are also more sensitive to the stress hormone cortisol. When cortisol levels are chronically elevated, the hippocampus, the brain's memory center, actually begins to physically shrink. Hippocampal volume loss is one of the most well-documented neurological signatures of chronic depression. There is also testosterone. Uniquely elevated in men, this hormone is deeply involved in motivation, reward processing, and social bonding. Low testosterone is independently associated with depression, cognitive fog, and fatigue. And the relationship is bidirectional depression, lowers testosterone, and low testosterone deepens depression. A man can be severely depressed and pass every informal assessment of fine. He goes to work. He performs. He makes jokes. He says he is good. He is not good, but neither he nor the people around him have the framework to recognize what is actually happening. This is why male depression is so chronically underdiagnosed. And because it goes undiagnosed, it goes untreated. And because it goes untreated, it escalates silently until it reaches a threshold that produces either a crisis or an ending. Chronic psychological distress activates the HPA axis, the body's central stress response system. When chronically activated, it produces sustained elevation of cortisol and adrenaline, systemic inflammation, suppression of immune function, and dysregulation of the cardiovascular system. Men with untreated depression have a 50 to 80% increased risk of developing coronary heart disease. Men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women, despite women attempting at higher rates. The reason is method lethality. The window for intervention is narrower, and the consequences of silence are more immediately fatal. The prefrontal cortex does not fully mature until approximately age 25. In adolescent boys experiencing surging testosterone, the combination creates a uniquely high-risk period we almost entirely fail to address. Physical activity is one of the most neurologically validated interventions for depression. Aerobic exercise increases BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which stimulates new neuron growth in the hippocampus, directly counteracting the shrinkage caused by chronic stress. Men who have strong social bonds, not large networks, but genuine emotionally available relationships, have dramatically lower rates of depression, cardiovascular disease, and early mortality. The data on male social isolation is so stark that some researchers have compared its health impact to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So what actually helps? Men respond better to structured, problem-oriented approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy. The man who says "I'm not okay" is not falling apart. He is being honest, perhaps for the first time. And honesty, with yourself and with someone you trust, is where recovery begins. You were not built to carry this alone. You have people in your life who would rather carry the weight of your pain than carry the weight of your coffin. If someone in your life says "I'm good," lean in. Because it's all good. Until it ain't. Men's Mental Health Awareness Month is observed every June. If this reached you today, share it.
Somewhere in your circle, there is a man who needed this today.